Resident Evil has had its fair share of hideous-looking villains, creepy boss fights, and terrifying monsters. That's why today I'm going to be breaking down the top 7 most terrifying monsters in Resident Evil. This list was completely compiled together by yours truly, so don't take any offense if you feel like there's anything that I said was wrong or incorrect, because this is solely based off of my opinion. If you guys do go on to enjoy this video, then please make sure you guys drop a like, and without further ado, make sure you grab one of your favorite beverages, and try your best to not get nightmares after watching this video. So, I'm ready, if you guys are ready, to get into number 7. Lurkers are classified as amphibians, but we can tell just by looking at them that they were once frogs. Now, that might not be enough to scare you, unless you actually have a fear of frogs.
Ugh! Brother, ugh! What's that?
But these lurkers can take you out very quickly. Their swiftness is what makes them uniquely terrifying compared to the rest. And I can't even imagine to think how many times I've played this game and been worried about these lurkers being the thing that actually takes me out. The one thing that the lurkers possess that's different than the actual boss fights in Resident Evil 0 is that the lurkers have the ability to actually instant kill you. You see, the lurkers actually have an attack in which they're able to grapple onto your legs with the use of their tongues, and if you're not able to fight out of their attack, then they're simply just going to pull you ever so closely towards them until you finally are in their mouths and being eaten alive. Now, that can be a pretty sinister thing to imagine there, but that's just the harsh reality of the lurkers when you're playing Resident Evil 0. And just for that simple fact alone, these lurkers are going to have to creep their way into the number 7 spot on this top 7 most terrifying monsters of Resident Evil. And without further ado, why don't we move on to number 6? William Birkin makes his way into the number 6 spot just for the simple fact that he is such a reoccurring boss fight in not only the remake of Resident Evil 2, but the original as well. And I absolutely love the creativity that went behind William Birkin's transformations, and I have to just give a huge round of applause to Capcom for making him look extra scary and spookier each time you encounter him. And just like any classic Resident Evil boss, his weakness is his eyeballs, and of course, just like any classic Resident Evil boss, his eyeballs are all scattered around on his body. But like I just said previously, I really like the creativity that went behind William Birkin and all of his transformations, and the farther you get into the game, the harder it gets to actually take William Birkin down. All of Birkin's stages can actually make this list for terrifying monsters, but in my opinion, the transformation of William Birkin that really sealed the deal for me for making him truly a terrifying monster was his final form. The G5 William Birkin is truly one of the most terrifying monsters I think I've ever seen in Resident Evil, and also his face is displayed on the side of his body, just like all of his transformations. But this one is truly the nastiest looking one that I have ever seen.
Okay, let's go!
Come on, let's go! What, are you scared?
At number 5 on this list, I had to put Nas Veratu from Resident Evil Code Veronica X. Just off of the pure looks alone, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys could agree with why Nas Veratu is on this list and made it into the top 5 of this list. But if you've actually went through and played all of Code Veronica X in its entirety, then you would recall that they actually introduced Nas Veratu in such a sinister looking way. Whoever was responsible for making Nas Veratu, which was probably Alex or Alexia Ashford, they definitely had to keep him locked up in some kind of hole or something, with not only that, but like a ton of things that keep him locked into place, and he's also blindfolded. All of these things make you wonder why he's locked up so heavily, but the introduction to him really sets the tone for what's gonna be the Nas Veratu boss fight. And creeping its way into the number 4 spot, we have Resident Evil 4's The Regenerators. The Regenerators are easily one of the creepiest and most terrifying enemies on this list, but they are also the first enemies to actually be based off of humans. The Regenerators themselves were created by actually putting multiple parasites within a human body, causing them to mutate and regenerate rapidly. Also, a huge number of these Regenerators were kept in a cold storage room to actually help them hibernate. I think the Resident Evil 4 remake did a great job on the Regenerators, and they actually, I think, are more difficult to defeat in the Resident Evil 4 remake compared to Resident Evil 4 original. And when you get to the lab section of Resident Evil 4 remake, it feels like the quantity of the Regenerators has increased quite a bit compared to the OG RE4. But with all that being said, their sheer presence is really what gives them this spot on the number 4 list. Not to mention all those weird looking creepy worm tentacle things that come out of them when you shoot them, but also that really weird sound that they make. Yeah, all those creepy sounds don't help with the fear of knowing what's about to come through that doorway. The Regenerators are certified terrifying in Resident Evil, but let's move on to number 3, shall we? This part in Resident Evil Village is hands down the creepiest thing that ever took place in this game, and in the whole Ethan Winters saga in general. Nobody can change my mind about the fact that this is one of the creepiest things that we have seen in a Resident Evil game in later history. And I am definitely not the biggest fan of Resident Evil Village or first-person camera angles, so definitely don't think that I'm just trying to bandwagon this game, because I am speaking truthfully in the way that I think this is actually one of the scariest things that I have witnessed in a Resident Evil game. It'll stalk you, but not like number 2 on this list.
Jill!
Brad!
We've gotta... Jill! Help!
As scary as Nemesis tends to look, I put him at number 2 on this list because of his pure relentlessness and his drive to go after Jill and the rest of the STARS members. When you play Resident Evil 3, you literally get no break from Nemesis, and that is exactly what the game feels like through and through. But man, nothing scared me more as a kid with this Nemesis jump scare through the window. When you're playing this game as a kid or a new player, it takes much longer to get to the RPD in Resident Evil 3 than it does RE2. Then, when you finally get to the RPD and you can see that Nemesis is still after you, you realize that you literally have no break from this tyrant-chasing maniac. All of those Nemesis encounters really makes him one of the most terrifying enemies in all of Resident Evil, but his final form is also quite a scary sight to see. Throughout the entirety of me being a Resident Evil fan, I've always thought that Nemi was one of the most terrifying monsters in Resident Evil. Coming in at number 1 as the most terrifying monster in Resident Evil, hands down, has to be Lisa Trevor. I also think that Lisa Trevor was creatively one of the most impactful villains or monsters in Resident Evil history. Lisa Trevor's backstory is very tragic indeed, and at times it almost makes you feel bad for her because she was a used-to-be person. I don't know about y'all, but if you hear that sound, you definitely don't want to go down there and find out what it is. Lisa Trevor and Resident Evil 1 Remake as a whole is a masterpiece of a survival horror game. The only thing that's unfortunate is I think they could have made Lisa Trevor's fight a little bit more tense and hard to do, but that's a good reason for them to do another Resident Evil 1 Remake in the future. They included her in Welcome to Raccoon City, but she was not what us fans intended. But that's gonna go ahead and wrap up my top 7 most terrifying monsters in Resident Evil. Just like all of my videos, I encourage you all to go down in the comments and let your voices be heard in case there was anything that you think I missed or that there was any kind of monster you think should have been in here instead. I could have gone as far as to add someone like Jack Baker on this list, but I think he looks more of like a human instead of like a nasty, gross kind of terrifying monster. But of course, I love connecting with everyone through the Resident Evil community and seeing what all of you guys have to share. So please go down in the comments and drop a like on this video if you went on to enjoy it. I ended up getting sick throughout the course of making this video, so my apologies for that, as this video could have been out weeks and prior. But you guys know the deal, I post every single day, so make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss another daily Resident Evil upload. I love you all very much, thank you for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers, and with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video tomorrow. Peace.